Good morning, everyone. Very proud to be with you today. I'm very proud to be serving as a president of Bulgaria, a very peaceful country, the country of roses, a country which is very well known all over the world of its ancient history, culture. Very, very proud that Bulgaria is on the right track of its European and democratic development, and I was proud to contribute to that. I was just a year ago the head of state, supreme commander of not just Bulgarian but also a NATO member state country and European Union member state country. I knew everybody who is anybody in the world of politics. I was talking to them. I was pretty young. In the year of 2012, I was the youngest president of European Union member state country. Then I was very jealous on the President Duda of Poland, who came and who was younger than me. But as a young and very ambitious politician, I asked all the questions to all those important people on the planet. I was talking to Putin, I was talking to Obama, 25 meetings I had with Obama. I counted every single one of them. I talked to Chancellor Merkel even many more times than with the President Obama. Erdogan and all the world and regional leaders I met, I talked, I asked questions, I was curious, I was looking for answers, and I was trying to understand people who lead the planet today, what kind of plan do they have? Do they have a plan? And I know very well that actually, even if you're in business or in politics or in your social life, if you want the others to follow you, to believe in you, it's not just linked to having propaganda machines, dependent institutions, but it's about having a plan. What do you want to achieve for your country? What do you want to achieve for the planet? And is this plan going to be bankable, bring results for people? So, we're talking to all of them. I made my own opinion about what is going on the planet. Where are we leading? Who is leading? Is someone leading today? And I want to share that with you. I'm even trying to write a book. It's called Cold Peace, of the situation we have today on the planet. I call it Cold Peace because I do not agree with many analyzers, politicians today who say we are in a new Cold War time. Even I listened to the Russian Prime Minister Medvedev on the Munich Security Conference in 2015. I was on the first row when he said we are in a new Cold War time. I disagree completely. We're not in a second Cold War, but we are in a very new phase of development, much more dangerous, much more unpredictable, much more worrying than after what happened after the Second World War and the Cold War time. And I call it Cold Peace time. It is peace because nobody wants to have a full-scale war, but it is a cold peace because we see all the parameters and all the methods from the Cold War time coming back. We see enemies, we see propaganda machines, we see attacks, including cyber attacks, we see wars in a way of hybrid wars, but also real wars. We witnessed a record number of conflicts on the planet. I'm not telling you this, it's the Secretary General of the United Nations. For 5 years I was there representing Bulgaria, the European Union also. I listened to the speeches very carefully of everyone. And we witnessed today a record number of crises, a record number of conflicts, a record number of refugees, and a record numbers of uncertainty and instability on the planet. So this is, for me, a new phase of development. It is that the world today is swimming in unknown waters. It's very different of what it was during the Cold War time. And let me give you a couple examples why it is different and why it isn't more dangerous. In the Cold War time, there was a certain level of trust between the two powers. Today, there is no trust at all. In the Cold War time, there was certain predictability. Even the Soviet Union, for example, initiated, I repeat, initiated a peaceful process in Europe that ended up with, I would say, the strongest foundations of not just peace, but the lasting peace in Europe. And those are the Helsinki Accords from 1975. So the Soviet Union was part of the process leading to amazing results, which are the Helsinki Accords, the very basic foundations of peace in Europe. But Russia today has blown up completely and violated totally what the Soviet Union was standing for, the Helsinki Accords. So Soviet Union signed up, initiated a process that is today completely blown up and violated by Putin's Russia. In the Cold War time, there was a lot of cooperation, and there were, we call it red lines, and we knew that those red lines are not going to be crossed, even by the two superpowers of the Cold War time, the United States and Russia. Today, many red lines have been crossed completely. For example, to all of us in Europe, a red line, I'm not speaking just about the European Union, I'm speaking about 47 countries in Europe that represent 830 million people, represented by the Council of Europe. To all of us in the Council of Europe, I was leading the Council of Europe in 2016 and the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and it was still possible to achieve a consensus, but it was not possible to cooperate on major issues where it was possible even during the Cold War time. So red lines have been crossed to all of us in an amazing way. One of them was that we all believed that borders are never, ever going to be moved in Europe by force. But unfortunately, this is exactly what happened in Ukraine. We believed that if you have the strongest nuclear arsenal on the planet, if you are a member of the United Nations Security Council, then you have certain responsibilities like no other countries do. You need to give an example. You need to have a plan for a peaceful world. But we've seen exactly the opposite, including for members of the United Nations Security Council. If you're a member of the United Nations Security Council, you should build up institutions. You should work for rules. Because the only way to have peace, and not just peace, but a lasting peace on the planet, is if you have rules that apply to everyone, and institutions that guarantee the rules are kept. Because if we do not have rules, and we do not have institutions to keep the rules, we're going to have a chaos. But we have seen members of the United Nations Security Council, permanent members, who have been blowing up the rules in this new phase of development, which I call cold peacetime. In the cold peacetime today on the planet, we also see an innovation that is called frozen conflict. And that innovation, frozen conflict, is freezing some countries. Again, it's cold in the cold peacetime. Many countries have been frozen. Look at frozen conflicts all over the Balkan and all over the Black Sea, from Azerbaijan, Armenia, Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia. Today, Georgia, for example, is not controlling 1/3 of its territory because of a frozen conflict. So Russia, but not just Russia, innovated the frozen conflict as a tool, I would say very cheap and very efficient tool to keep countries in its neighborhood dependent. Because who's going to invest in a frozen conflict area? Who is going to bring perspective for people? Who is going to bring working places, machines, technologies, if people are on the front lines? So the frozen conflicts today in many countries are initiated by some other powers in order for those powers to keep such countries in their periphery dependent. In the cold peace time we're living today, we also have a situation where the President of the United States, who is supposed, at least the President of the United States, to have its role of leading, having a plan not just for the United States but for the planet, is doing exactly the opposite. We have an American president who is preaching and praying that he wants to make bilateral deals. He wants to strike deals. But just tell me, one problem on the planet, one of them, one of the many we have, that could be solved by a bilateral deal. Even you get China and the United States together, two more powerful countries on the planet. Are they capable, just two countries, China and United States, to solve climate change? Can they solve migration? Can they solve economic crisis if they come again? Can they solve terrorism, which is striking on our streets on a daily basis? They cannot. So the American president wants to strike bilateral deals, but I don't think that you're expecting from a president to strike deals. And bilateral deals are no solution. They do not represent any solution to the problem we face today on the planet. The multilateral solutions could be solution, but not bilateral. And we have witnessed, and I was so proud, I was representing Bulgaria when we negotiated by COP21 and the process before and after the Paris Climate Change Agreement. That's historic. You have 193 countries, all of them, rich and poor, strong and weak, big and small, all of them reaching a global agreement on fighting for the next generations for a clean and a better environment. The planet is burning today. It's burning of gases, overcrowded of people, of cars, of waste. And we need to have a solution. And we had a solution. And I was so proud. I put my signature, 193 countries. And now we have the American president who is blowing that, the global consensus. And we had also an amazing agreement, 193 countries on the so-called Sustainable Development Goals. And all of them make sense. 17 goals for a better planet. And we agreed to all of them. And I wish that there will be debates also here at this wonderful institution about the Sustainable Development Goals. How are we going to achieve them by 2030? Because this is a very sound foundation of how do we see the planet in the future, what do we want to achieve for our children. But the American president today is not interested in that at all. And most of all, we in the European Union are extremely worried because the American president today, the President Trump, does not understand and he is not willing to support the process of European integration. He just looks at bilateral deals. I am also very worried because we all speak, and I'm going to tell you a couple of words about what is going on also from technological perspective on the planet. And we see an amazing development. We see industries coming, a new industrial revolution on our doors that is going to change the planet completely in the next 10 years. Everything is going to change. The way we live, the way we travel, the way we produce, the way we work. It is all going completely to change. And in this period, in this exciting moment of history, the American president is campaigning that he's digging coal. We believe in the 21st century, not the coal, the petrol of 21st century, the most valuable asset is data, is information. And whoever controls that information, whoever knows how to work with that, he's the king for 21st century. But we have the American president telling us we need to dig coal. So it's very dangerous that the world leadership today, in the cold peace time, as I see it, as I write in my book, I'm sharing with you my thoughts, which I bring in my book. Politicians today, unfortunately, do not lead. They do not have a sustainable plan for the future. We might be striking some small deals, we might be fighting with a lot of problems, but you see, there is just two ways how you address a problem. You get every book on management, and then you will see the worst possible approach and the best possible approach. And I wish to see the best possible approach, but unfortunately I don't see much. Probably 20 out of 200 countries on the planet are a symbol of this best possible approach. The worst possible approach is the so-called damage controlling. It is in your life, it could be in your family, it could be in your businesses, it could be in your country. You have a lot of problems. And when you have a lot of problems, every day you deal with them. You have a lot of damages, you're trying to control them. That's how I've seen the European Union reacting in the last 5 years. I'm a very pro-European politician, pro-democratic. I love the European Union. I campaigned in Bulgaria by saying the European, to me, is not going to be a foreign policy, but it's my family. I was living in Germany, so it's my family. But and I was trying, hardly trying, talking to all the heads of states, all the prime ministers, to tell them about the good approach and about the bad approach. I was leading. I brought 11 presidents in Bulgaria, and we had a negotiation about the problems in the European Union. I was asking them, dear friends, if you want to solve a problem, you need to point at the problem. If you're hiding the problem, you're not going to solve it. Today, many governments are hiding the problems. They're shifting the problems to the next government, to the next generation, but they're not solving them in a sustainable way. That could be populistic, that could be working well for today or tomorrow, but it's not working on a long term. Today we see the march of nationalists and populists all over the European Union and the planet. They represent between 10 and 20% of political spectrum in most of the countries on the planet. But just if you look back into history, I'm asking a very simple question. Show to me one country on the planet where one politician have solved any problem, one problem, in a sustainable way through nationalistic and populistic approaches. You can address people's fears, but you should not just play with people's fears, you should solve them. It is up to politicians not to deepen, but to solve the problems. And I was preaching and praying also in the European Union, let us point at the problems. We have not one, 11 crises. I pointed at every one of those 11 crises. Let us get one of them and let's get it solved so that we are proud we've done it in the European way. And people in the European Union will be so proud to see that the European Union is capable of solving difficult problems. I wish that the European Union will come back to the stage, as we have a very dangerous situation today. The power today is shifting. Balances are changing. And we have a very new geopolitical situation, which is extremely dangerous, because I will put it this way, I hope you understand me right. There was one world order that was created right after the devastation of the Second World War. Politicians were devastated. They had to look for a solution. The questions were very simple. After hundreds of years of wars, how can we create a sound foundations for peace in Europe? Churchill was the guy who created the Council of Europe, actually. And politicians have started building up rules and institutions. And that lasted until 2014, when Russia has blown up completely and violated all the basic foundations of those rules and institutions. We had a situation where politicians believed that the only way to have peace and sustainable peace is through institutions and is through rules of international order. And they have built up and built up and built up. And that was a very interesting process of learning from history and making history. So the European Union was making history. The European Union was leading, it is, and it was a unique project where countries came together. Big countries like Germany, United Kingdom, France refused to play the big powers, the great powers games from the centuries. They refused what Bismarck was preaching and praying or what Napoleon was doing. They said, we want to have a lasting peace. And the only way to do that is to understand that for peace, everyone is important. Every country should and has to contribute for global peace. And because of that, they have built up institutions and worlds of international order. But now I'm asking you, one of the most heavily weaponized and dangerous borders on the planet is, for example, the one between India and Pakistan in Kashmir. Now you tell me, I'm asking a very simple question. Look at Ukraine. Ukraine was the third largest nuclear weapon country on the planet back in the Cold War time, after the United States and Russia. Ukraine had 1,550 nuclear warheads. It was more than United Kingdom and France together. And Ukraine gave all its nuclear weapons, all of them, against the signatures of 4 great powers, big countries on the planet. This is the so-called Budapest Memorandum. And it was written in this memorandum with the signatures of United States, Russia, France, United Kingdom, that Ukraine and the sovereignty of Ukraine is totally guaranteed by those 4 countries. And in order to have this total guarantee, Ukraine was giving up 1,550 nuclear warheads. And today the Budapest Memorandum is blown, is burned, doesn't make any sense, and is not important. Because one of the countries who signed the Budapest Memorandum violated it completely and occupied territories of Ukraine. And if India and Pakistan today even have the greatest will for a nuclear disarmament, who's going to guarantee that? I'm asking a simple question. Who is going to guarantee that? And who are those countries going to trust to guarantee them to give their nuclear weapons? As Ukraine was guaranteed, and it happened what happened. So we are swimming in unknown waters. We are in a very new phase of development. We are in a cold peace time. And this peace is cold because many countries have been frozen. And because international rules, international relations today are not built up, but more moving into being frozen. And in this new phase of development, nobody is guaranteed anymore, as the signatures of those countries makes no sense anymore. And today, I'm giving you another example. The United Nations Security Council. We have India, we have Iraq, and we have Syria, for example. When the war broke in Syria, in Iraq, the United Nations Security Council was capable in hours to take a decision and to guarantee a humanitarian aid corridor so that thousands of lives have been saved because of humanitarian aid, doctors, nurses that were delivered and could do their job in Iraq. In the Syrian war, we have 7 years, 32 debates in the Security Council of the United Nations, 16 vetoes by the United States, 16 vetoes by the Russians. No solution at all. We have seen in Syria humanitarian aid being bombed and not preserved. So international institutions in one or the other way deteriorate, and not capable of bringing solutions anymore, and this is extremely, extremely dangerous. We see strong people in the cold peace time. They fire our imagination. They are very strong. But if you look back to history, you will understand that by having strong people, it's not so important what they do. The most important thing is, in history, always after strong people, strong leaders, as a rule, we have devastation. Napoleon was a very big leader, amazing leader. In first years of Napoleon, probably you know, probably you don't know, he innovated the constitutional court. Napoleon was an amazing democrat, very progressive young leader. And then he ended up being emperor. And after Napoleon, Europe was burned completely. Alexander the Great was an amazing leader. But after him, it was a very big devastation. Putin, Erdogan, Trump, they're saying they're very strong leaders. And I'm very worried. To me, a strong leader is the one who builds up strong institutions. To me, a wise leader, not a strong leader, matters. When I see strong leaders, then I'm telling myself, in history, I know what happens after strong leaders. A wise leader, what is he doing? To me, a wise leader, a wise president, is modernizing its country. It's building up institutions of international order, sticks to the rule of law, works for perspective and a plan for the country and for the planet. A plan that not just himself presents, but people trust. And a plan that is bringing results for countries and for a planet. And we have today such wonderful leaders. But on the other side, in many of the countries, we have strong leaders. I'll be very honest with you. Today we have leaders, democratically elected, who empty our democracies out of content. So you have democratically elected leaders that weaken and do not strengthen our democracies. You have democratically elected leaders that are not building up institutions, but capturing and taking over institutions. So in the cold peace time, we have very, very, very dangerous processes. But on the other side, when I'm telling you that politicians today do not lead and do not have, to me, in most of the areas, a sound plan for the future. I was so proud with the SDGs. I was so proud with the Paris Climate Change Agreement. I was so proud with the way United Nations, UNESCO, here we have a magnificent and a wonderful world leader, and Lady Madame Bokova, she is going to talk to you after me. She has been leading the World Cultural and Educational Institution. She can tell you so much how she struggled, and how she was fighting for world leaders to understand the role of UNESCO, to support, to give and not reduce financial support for institutions that represent the very best of humanity and the very best of our approach. How do we address the 21st centuries? Politicians today, once again, do not have the best approach, which is to me the proactive approach, but represent one of the worst approach, unfortunately to say, which is the damage controlling. Imagine we have proactive approach, long-term plan, 2030, 2050. Imagine we're working hard. We have a full consensus on the priorities. We say that the only way to fight terrorism is to educate people, because terrorism starts when education fails. We say that the only way to give a horizon to young people is by being sustainably active on the planet, because young people care about their future, and bring solutions to that, and do not just play day-to-day games with coal mining, steel producers, and defense companies and whoever, but just have a long-term plan on the planet, on your own country. I was very proud because in Bulgaria, I initiated 2020 national strategy, which is now executed by the 6th consecutive government. I was very proud that I started the debate for 2030, led the debate for the SDGs in Bulgaria. We implemented them in our national strategy. Bulgaria is now heavily contributing to the European Plan 2030. There are 2 countries on the planet that are very wise, very smart, and have a long-term plan and full consensus on its priorities. Guess who they are? China has a plan 2050, and Germany has a plan 2050. And many other countries have 2030. And that's nice. That's really wonderful. So you could have a plan. And politicians, of course, it's very democratic to fight in the parliament and to have different ideas. Of course, it's democratic, very democratic to not to agree. Everyone has its own opinion. But hopefully not to have partisan approach, not to divide the nation, which I think today many presidents do, and especially on long-term strategic priorities for the planet and for the countries, there has to be a consensus within political elites. That's what we have in some of probably 25, 30 countries on the planet. And those countries lead today. Could be Switzerland, could be Germany, could be Finland or Sweden, could be Canada, Australia, China. Those countries have sound and long-term plans, and they have achieved between political elites a consensus, and that helps a lot, which is not the case with the United States, and which is not the case with Russia or Turkey and many other countries on the planet. And I'm coming to the most important point. Who leads then today? We have a number of dreamers, a number of visionaries, amazing entrepreneurs who do lead today. And we have people, you know the names better than I do, but I'm going to struggle with some of you who say Richard Branson or Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. I know many of them. The most interesting guy to me is Masayoshi Son. He is the chef of SoftBank. I just met him 3 weeks ago in the United States. This is the guy who created Yahoo out of nothing. This is the guy who made the biggest Chinese search machine, together with the Chinese richest man in China. But this guy today is investing $100 billion in just one thing, and it's called artificial intelligence, AI. This is the guy who leads this amazing development on the planet with his bank in Japan called SoftBank. So we see the rise of the machines, we see new technologies, we see artificial intelligence, we see Internet of Things, we see an amazing world coming in a very fast speed. The boss of BMW, just 2 months ago, I talked to him, he was telling me BMW is not going to be a car producer anymore. BMW is a platform for mobility. Masayoshi Son was saying in a speech in New York 3 weeks ago, you can measure the intelligence of people. So the coefficient of intelligence of ordinary people is 70. Coefficient of intelligence of very wise people is 100. Einstein was having a coefficient of intelligence of 200. The machines in 2030 are going to have a coefficient of intelligence. When Einstein is 200, there will be 10,000. 10,000. So what do we do then? And here is the most important question to me, that as the world is going to change in a dramatic way for the next 10 years, I predict that in 10 years we have just 2 solutions, either a very big drama or a new sound foundations for a balanced, predictable, and sustainable world order for the 21st century. This could be a big drama if we vote for politicians and we support politicians who will not be able to produce rules and institutions of international order to keep cope with the new balances on the fast-changing world, multipolar world, multi-power, a lot of global, a lot of regional powers. And on the opposite, we could have an amazing and sound and a lasting peace and wonderful prerequisites for a beautiful planet if politicians, after Trump, because I have no hope of Trump or Putin or Erdogan, but after them, we support wise politicians who will be capable to bring rules and strengthen the institutions of international order to address the new realities of technological advance and political balances in the new 21st century and create the sound base and foundations for international order. I would definitely vote for such politicians, and once again, not strong leaders, but wise leaders. It's what we need. Leaders who support not interests, but who support rules and institutions. Leaders who do not occupy their neighbors, but help their neighbors. And I hope that in the next years we can see such a positive change. Remember, we are in a new phase of development. It is peace, but it is a cold peace, and it depends on every one of us to have a lasting peace in 21st century. Thank you.
Mr. Plevneliev, thank you very much for a very interesting speech, for a very interesting statement. But do we have a questions? Mr. Plevneliev, please, go ahead. Well, I will start if you don't mind. Well, okay. Well, Mr. Plevneliev, we are very worried what is going on in the modern world. You mentioned United States. It's a pity that the Paris Agreement of 2015 December destroyed. I can see in my land, well, we have a snow in Europe, and in Armenia this year winter we have average temperature plus 15. And what is going to happen in the summertime, we don't know, because we were overwatered. Now it's totally changed. Now it's totally changed. We are going to harvest grape 2 times. You know what's happening. But you know, and I agree with you that such type of behavior is destroying the world. But yesterday, from this building, I went to the hotel, having a look to the last economic news. And there was a report, the first one, that in February, in the United States, they created 381,000 new jobs. This is a tremendous figure, because during the Obama's time, who used to be a very successful president, or Bill Clinton, again, economic very successful presidents, the maxi was 100 to 110,000. So Trump, the rating is going up because he's going to reduce the unemployment like this. Unbelievable limit was on 3%. It used to be, 7, 8, 9%. Or look to the Russia economy. The unemployment is going down. Economy is in a swamp. They have a negative degree of growth, or sometimes they have 1, or last year they had 1.5. But unemployment is going down. And prices on our vodka are still not high. Don't ignore that. Don't ignore that. That knows, that Putin that knows that. Don't ignore that. Well, how you can explain that? Both of them are going to be, in Russia, people have feeling that is good. And I haven't been in the United States since last year, but they again, they're going to consider that. That's bringing positive results. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, you asked several questions. I'll be very quick on all of that. First of all, Paris climate change agreement is not dead, definitely not dead. Even if the President Trump is pulling out, the others will stay. The French President Macron is doing a remarkable job, amazing job on that. So, and it depends on every one of us who signed. I signed on behalf of Bulgaria the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and Bulgaria will deliver. And I'm sure that all the others, we have a very clear national plan on how to do that. Today, for example, in my country, 20% of energy comes from renewables, 20%, which is a lot. On the other side, Trump, I'm going to fight with you, is not creating new jobs. It's the American economy who creates the new jobs. And if he's pushing with his propaganda and tweeting that he created 380,000 jobs, I have to tell you, if you listen, go back in YouTube and look at the latest Obama speech of the State of the Union for 2016, then you will see that Obama will say, during my 2 mandates as a president, I created 10 million jobs, even between 10 and 12 million, which is right. But also is not right that Obama created them. Listen, who creates those jobs in the United States? It's a simple, the new industrial revolution creates them. And the new industrial revolution is bringing amazing opportunities to countries, but is going to devastate some countries. So it is up to all of us to understand what is going on with the new technologies and to cope with them and to be part of them. The United States, let me explain very simply what is the new industrial revolution all about. It's about customizing goods. So in the future, medicine is not going to be, you're not going to buy aspirin C from Bayer. You will be receiving aspirin for Peter, for George. It will be customized for every person. Cars will be customized. In the past, Emir of Qatar was buying a Rolls-Royce Phantom with the so-called night stars on the floor, which as an extra was costing probably 20,000 euros. In the new BMW 3rd Series, you will have it for 200 euros. So things are going to be customized. And those countries who will mostly benefit, I'll give another example. Adidas today in Germany is reshaping completely its factories because Adidas believes that they should produce your own personal shoes, deliver it to your home without this cost $1 more. So you're going on the internet, your color, your form, it's your own shoe. And you reach it and you become it, and it's not more expensive. So it's about customizing. The 3D printer is what he's doing. He's customizing. So, but the point is that the new industrial revolution is empowering those countries who are closer to the customers, because the customers of the new industrial revolution, unfortunately, are 1 billion people. Middle class, upper class on the planet. It's not all of us who will benefit in the next years. And those 1 billion, you have 300 in United America, 500 in Europe, and some in the eastern coast, unfortunately. So the fight is for middle, upper, for middle class, for hope, for horizon, for everyone who sees not equal money or equal, but equal perspective, equal chances, and then it is up to you to create them. So Trump, with protectionism, could be on a short term creating jobs. On a long term, he's going to devastate the American economy. And you need to be careful. And one more thing. I was in the real estate business before I became a minister. I was one of the very few people, members of the Global Real Estate Institute. When I was a member of the Global Real Estate Institute, we gave Trump as an example, as one of the very few entrepreneurs in the real estate business who didn't make any money. I'll be very clear with you. Trump inherited more money that he has today. He might be having very strong propaganda, golden buildings on Fifth Avenue. I don't think he's a symbol of a wise and sustainable business approach. In half of the countries on the planet, he cannot go with his real estate projects. One of them is Brazil, for example. He promised to Brazil, Rio, Trump Towers, and delivered nothing. Many of his projects bankrupted, but you cannot allow a country to bankrupt. So once again, be very careful. It's not the leaders. What we need is institutions. We need economies. We need economies that face ordinary people and bring results and solidarity for ordinary people. And in Russia, just the last sentence, in Turkey, huge imbalances. Don't look today what is going on in the price of vodka. I can tell you that Turkey by 2023 is going to be in a huge crisis. And it will start with a banking crisis. Russia has burned half of its foreign reserves. And the trend is very negative.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please.
Question?
Yeah, just in California, United States,
One more question. Shoot directly.
Okay, I wanted just to address the unemployment figures in the United States and thoughts on, because in the United States there are people that are working 60 to 80 hours a week and are still homeless, and so they're technically employed, but the living wage is so low. So if whether the indicator of unemployment is necessarily an indicator of a good economy for a population of a country, to address both of you on that, actually. But my question is we're understanding the aggressiveness of Russia, particularly as you were speaking about in 2014, yet we also saw trade between Europe and Russia during that time.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at strong institutions and stopping something, how will we do so if the businesses are still maintaining a healthy relationship, in this case with the Russian oligarchs during the 2014?
Yeah, okay. So very briefly on this last question. 10,000 German companies today are pulling out of Russia. The international institutions, some of them are pulling out of Russia. For example, EBRD has closed his offices in Russia. World Bank is out of Russia. And this is just giving you the trend. And if those major institutions of economy building are out of a country, I don't think it has a very rosy perspectives in the future by having the huge imbalances. Today in Russia, you have 350 banks that are owned by oligarchs. In my country, there was one bank owned by one oligarch. It went bankrupted big time because oligarchs are exactly the opposite of entrepreneurs. Oligarchs are the very worst of every economy because oligarchs can be rich and become rich only through states and using in an inefficient way the inefficiencies of state administrations. Oligarchs love privatization, they love state money, they love public procurement, and they benefit from that, but not ordinary people. So on the other side, we want to see entrepreneurs. And I don't see them much in Russia, and that's my problem. Entrepreneurs in Turkey today are moving out. They are moving out. Entrepreneurs who are the opposite of oligarchs. And when I see 350 oligarch banks in Russia, I know they haven't been managed well. I know sooner or later a crisis is coming. And then such strong leaders, even as President Putin and Erdogan, are going to be hit very hard because ordinary people will then see the price of vodka in a very different situation, or the price of whatever. My point is like this. In the United States, or in Russia, or in Turkey, or in any country on the planet, what is the president? The president should be, to me, a moral compass. He has to represent the very best of society. The American president had to represent the American dream. And the American dream is not about having money and a model as a wife. The American dream is on the Statue of Liberty. The American dream is not about dividing your nation by those who benefit by high technologies in California and those steel workers somewhere in Detroit or in Iowa. So we expect a president to unite, to have a plan, to lead, and not to strike deals, but to support rules and institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.